The Arab Migration, Compensation and Peace Plan, TAMCAPP. This is not an anti-Arab presentation, but a little background information will be given at the beginning to set the stage for the peace plan. In recent years, the land of Judea and Samaria, also known as the West Bank, is slowly and silently being consumed by the increasing numbers in the Arab population. There's a conscious effort to acquire all the land and suffocate the Jews living in their communities. This is accomplished by building and using the land in between the Jewish settlement communities, thereby preventing any expansion. Land is being swallowed up by the planting of trees between the Jewish communities, and some of this work is aided by foreign entities. Without authorization, the Arabs build homes on hilltops, valleys, and in a spread-out method with the specific goal of acquiring as much land as possible. Houses are built despite sometimes there are no families to move into them. Built just to acquire land. Money from Saudi Arabia often is used to finance building campaigns. Also, rich Arabs have been moving into Judea and Samaria from surrounding nations and building mansions on hilltops. All this must stop. There appears to be no building regulations in Judea and Samaria for Arabs, so many of the Arab settlements and tribal villages are unsophisticated and primitive. They can build almost anywhere they want because they know there will be no opposition. But as for the Jews, this is not the case. A building freeze, for the most part, is still in effect. The Arab population of Judea and Samaria does not even fulfill the minimum requirements of the UN guidelines for self-determination. But still, the UN, the US, and the EU attempt to force an Arab state on us. Palestinian institutions are being artificially sustained by donor nations, and the result is the attempted creation of the first ever beggar nation that can never look after itself. In the West Bank Arab settlements, they teach their children that all Israel needs to be conquered for them in the name of Islam. But the world has no problem with this. To this day, the PA still gives honor to those who have murdered Jews in suicide bombings. The Arabs don't pay for their water in Judea and Samaria. Israelis pay for it. In fact, the Israeli Water Authority says Israel supplies to the Palestinian Arabs in Judea and Samaria 46 million cubic meters a year, more water than Israel is obligated to under the now defunct Oslo Accords. And in direct breach of the Oslo Accords, the Palestinian Arabs have drilled over 300 unauthorized wells. They also cannot process their wastewater. The West Bank Palestinian Arabs do not treat their sewage water, which is contaminating the western Samarian aquifer that topographically runs westward down the western half of the Samarian mountains to the Tel Aviv coastal plain aquifers. Often this sewage water is spilled on the holy land of Judea and Samaria, desecrating the most sacred land in the universe. The civil authority and the IDF recently cleared out 20 million tons of trash from an illegal dump by the Arab settlement of Kfar Duma. It was located on top of a large underwater aquifer in Samaria, which was threatened by toxic chemical and waste. Only Jewish people, who are the natural inhabitants of this land, are capable of appreciating its true value, and indeed, the Jews who live here nurture and love this land. In February 2014, the media announced that Israel's electric company is planning to annul a debt of 1.4 billion shekels, about $430 million, which it has not managed to collect from the Arabs of Judea and Samaria and Gaza. They still observe Nakba Day, proclaiming Israel's independence a disaster. Besides this, their very culture and religion is not compatible with Jewish life and culture. Their communities are tribal in nature, and often different tribes from one village do not get along with Arabs from another village. This is actually why within their own communities they have refugee camps populated by their own people, because they are of a different tribe, and this horrible human rights abuse is supported by the UN, who sends aid to them instead of demanding the Arab people give equal rights. Israel was created as a homeland for the Jewish people, and this included Judea and Samaria because of the historical Jewish connection to this land, as mentioned in part of the Mandate for Palestine of 1922. This was adopted by the present-day UN when it came into being. There are now 21 Arab nations with 1,000 times more land than Israel. For 120 years, the Arabs have resisted Jews living on their ancient homeland given to them by God in a covenant. This is why there has never been, in the last 3,500 years, any other independent race of people living on this land as an independent nation. When the Jews were expelled by the Romans, there were only foreign occupying powers. There is only one solution. It is the Arab migration, compensation, and peace plan. This will result in a separation of the two peoples, since Arabs will never live in peace with Jews. The 120-year persecution by Arabs against Jews on this land must now come to an end. There is only one compassionate and just solution to bring peace. The billions of dollars that has been poured into the Arab communities did not produce peace or advancement for them. The only compassionate plan is to pay the Arab people to settle in other Arab lands. With the help of Jewish expertise in building modern communities from barren land and educating Arabs in Israeli advanced farming methods, Arabs can move to Arab lands and prosper themselves with Jewish and international help. Indeed, every Arab family could receive $200,000 and be asked if they would like to migrate to another nation and dwell among their own people. Obviously, the extremists will hate this, but the average everyday good Arab will agree to this. The Arab nations must be part of this agreement to their benefit. In fact, God would bless them. It was Arab migration in pre-state years, especially during the British Mandate, that this Arab population for the most part migrated to this land for a better life because Jews brought prosperity. However, in violation of the mandate for Palestine by Britain, Jewish immigration was restricted and even stopped, while at the same time Britain opened the floodgates of Arab immigration to this land. Many of the migrating Arabs began doing violence against the Jews. Now it's time for Arab people on Jewish land to return to their natural homelands located in the surrounding nations and be compensated in a generous way, with the Arab nations and the world helping to facilitate this activity so that Jews can flourish on their homeland and bring blessing to the world. The Arab migration, compensation, and peace plan, it is the only compassionate solution for all.